Day 1. The lights go out. Most people assume it's temporary. Day 2. Gas stations run dry. Grocery shelves empty. By day 7, people stop asking when the power comes back. They start asking how long they can survive without it. This is what really happens in the first 7 days after the grid goes down. Welcome to Prepper's Paradigm, your channel dedicated to practical prepping and disaster preparedness. I use a computer-generated voice because my own is difficult to understand due to an injury. Let's break down the first week, day by day, and see how fast modern life changes. The grid goes down. Most people don't react immediately. They assume a storm knocked out a line. They assume a transformer blew. They assume someone will fix it soon. Some phones still work. In certain areas, internet service limps along. A few gas stations continue pumping fuel using backup generators. Some grocery stores open under emergency lighting. Normal life continues, just strained. By mid-morning, local news stations that still have generator power report widespread outages. Officials say crews are assessing the situation. Social media fills with speculation in areas where cell towers remain online. Traffic increases as people leave work early. Lines form at the gas stations that are still operating. A handful of shoppers begin clearing shelves of bottled water and batteries. Most people still buy only what they plan to buy. Behind the scenes, backup systems carry the load. Hospitals switch to generators. Cell towers rely on battery reserves. Water treatment plants continue pumping, but now they run on contingency power. Grid operators attempt to isolate faults and stabilize sections of the network. On day 1, infrastructure still functions in many places because redundancy exists. That redundancy has limits. Prepared households act differently on this first day. They avoid crowds unless they truly need something. If they need fuel or supplies, they go early and move deliberately. They use cash if necessary. They do not linger. They check stored water. They verify food supplies. They gather lighting, batteries, and power banks in one place. They review communication plans with family members. Most important, they stay calm. The public sees inconvenience. The prepared see a narrowing window, and that window may only last a day. Morning arrives. The power has not returned. Now the mood shifts. Confidence fades. Employers close offices. Schools cancel classes. News updates grow less certain in areas where broadcasting still works. In neighborhoods where stores remain open, parking lots fill before opening. Managers switch to cash-only sales if payment systems fail. Some stores limit entry. Others close entirely once refrigeration systems begin failing or inventory runs out. Inside the stores that are still operating, carts move faster. Bottled water disappears first, then bread, then canned goods. By midday, entire sections sit empty. Gas stations with generator power see long lines. Most others sit dark. Stations that still pump fuel often run dry within hours. ATMs stop working in many areas. Banks limit withdrawals where systems still function. Cash becomes more valuable than it has been in years. Behind the scenes, the supply chain begins to stall. Modern logistics depend on electricity at every step. Distribution centers require power for loading systems and inventory tracking. Fuel terminals rely on pumps. Truck dispatch systems run digitally. When power stays down, fuel delivery is slow. Without fuel, trucks do not move. Without trucks, shelves do not refill. Just-in-time inventory works efficiently during stability. It collapses quickly during disruption. Law enforcement responds to traffic accidents and disputes over supplies. Most areas do not see widespread violence. They see tension. Frustration grows as options shrink. Prepared households move differently on day 2. They avoid the rush unless something specific is absolutely necessary. Most prepared families stay home. They inventory supplies calmly. They reduce refrigerator use. They begin operating under conservation rules. They assume this outage may last longer than officials predict. Day 2 separates emotional reaction from disciplined response. Public confidence weakens. Systems strain, and the margin for error gets smaller. By day 3, frustration turns into unease. The power still has not returned. Official updates grow less specific in areas where broadcasts continue. Timelines disappear. Statements shift toward assessment and stabilization. Now communication begins fragmenting. Cell towers that relied on battery backup start going offline. Some neighborhoods lose service entirely. Others experience weak, intermittent signals. Text messages delay. Calls drop without warning. Home internet fails in most areas because routers sit powerless. Even where large data centers remain operational on generator power, local network infrastructure begins failing. Smaller regional providers shut down first. The result is not a total information blackout. It is patchwork silence. Some communities still receive updates through radio broadcasts or stations running on generator power. Others hear nothing at all. Rumors spread quickly in areas where social media still functions. In places without service, word of mouth replaces verified information. Confusion grows faster than clarity. Behind the scenes, technicians attempt sectional restarts of portions of the grid. Restarting a large power network requires precise synchronization between generation and transmission. Instability in one area can cause another cascade. Fuel logistics now become critical. Backup generators at communications hubs, broadcast stations, and infrastructure sites require resupply. Without steady fuel transport, even hardened systems begin shutting down. For the average household, uncertainty becomes the dominant emotion. Prepared households anticipated this stage. They conserved battery power early. They rely on portable radios for confirmed updates rather than constant online refreshes. They use GMRS radios for short-range communication between family members. They avoid spreading unverified information. They reduce unnecessary outgoing communication. They understand that confusion creates risk. Day 3 marks a psychological turning point. When communication fragments, people feel isolated, and isolation changes behavior quickly. By day 4, the outage no longer feels temporary. Food shortages grow more obvious. Communication remains unreliable. Fuel sits scarce. Now a far more serious problem begins to surface. Water. Most people rarely think about what keeps clean water flowing. Municipal systems depend on electric pumps to move and treat water. Treatment plants require constant power to filter and disinfect. Lift stations push wastewater through sewer lines using electricity. Some cities rely partly on gravity-fed storage tanks. In those areas, pressure may hold longer. In others, especially flat or low-lying regions, pressure drops quickly once backup generators run low on fuel. High-elevation neighborhoods often lose flow first. Faucets begin sputtering. Showers slow to a trickle. Some households receive boil advisories through whatever communication channels remain active. In other areas, taps simply run dry without warning. Behind the scenes, treatment facilities ration generator fuel. Operators prioritize hospitals and critical infrastructure. Pump stations shut down in less critical zones. Wastewater systems struggle as lift stations fail. Sewer backups occur in vulnerable areas. Garbage collection slows or stops. Trash accumulates. Sanitation problems rarely make dramatic headlines. They spread quietly and then accelerate. Disease risk increases as clean water becomes limited and waste management falters. Most households stored only a small supply of bottled water. That ran out days ago. Prepared households understood this risk long before day 4. They stored drinking water in meaningful quantity. They prioritized hydration over comfort. They deployed gravity filters, purification tablets, or other filtration systems as soon as pressure becomes unreliable. They shift to low water hygiene practices. They conserve deliberately. Water discipline now determines comfort, health, and stability. Day 4 changes the nature of the crisis. Food shortages create stress. Communication loss creates uncertainty. Water failure creates survival pressure. Modern life rests on systems most people never see. On day 4, those systems begin to fail in plain sight. By day 5, fatigue sets in. Sleep has become irregular. Nights feel longer without steady lighting or normal routines. Stress builds inside households. Now the medical system begins showing visible strain. Hospitals remain operational in many areas because they run on generators and hold priority for fuel resupply. But pressure increases. Administrators monitor fuel reserves carefully. Non-essential procedures stop. Staff shortages grow as employees manage their own families and transportation challenges. Emergency rooms fill with preventable problems. Food poisoning from spoiled groceries. Dehydration from limited clean water. Injuries from improper generator use. Accidents caused by candles and improvised lighting. Ambulance response times lengthen. Dispatch systems struggle in regions where communications remain unstable. Police and emergency services prioritize life-threatening calls. Pharmacies close in many areas when power fails or payment systems go offline. Prescription refills become difficult or impossible for many people. Individuals with diabetes, heart conditions, respiratory illness, or other chronic issues feel the impact immediately. Medical supply chains depend on refrigeration, transport, and digital ordering systems. Without fuel and stable logistics, resupply slows dramatically. Small health problems now carry larger consequences. Prepared households approach day 5 differently. They store extra prescription medications where legally possible. They maintain a proper first aid kit and know how to use it. They avoided unnecessary risk earlier in the outage, reducing the chance of injury. They discard questionable food rather than gambling. They monitor hydration carefully. They stay inside unless movement is necessary. During a prolonged outage, avoiding injury often matters more than treating it. Day 5 reinforces a hard truth. Most breakdowns do not begin with dramatic events. They begin with small problems that stack up when systems cannot respond, and the margin for error continues shrinking. By day 6, strain shows. Sleep deprivation, uncertainty, and shrinking supplies affect behavior. Most neighborhoods remain calm. Many families stay inside and conserve what they have. But in certain areas, especially densely populated ones, tension begins surfacing. Looting appears in isolated pockets, usually where stores were stripped earlier in the week. Opportunistic theft increases. Unoccupied buildings become targets. Police respond slower than usual because staffing, fuel, and communications are stretched thin. Emergency lines remain overloaded. Officers prioritize violent incidents and life-threatening emergencies. Property crimes often receive delayed response or none at all. The issue is not universal chaos. The issue is uneven stability. Some communities remain orderly, others struggle. Rumors intensify mistrust. Without reliable communication, people assume the worst. Minor disputes escalate faster than they would under normal conditions. Behind the scenes, local authorities begin prioritizing limited fuel for emergency vehicles and critical infrastructure. Command centers operate in conservation mode. Some neighborhoods organize informal watch systems. Others withdraw and isolate completely. Stress reveals character. Prepared households stay quiet. They reduce visible light at night. They limit generator noise when possible. They reinforce doors and maintain layered security without becoming confrontational. They observe without drawing attention. They understand that visibility increases risk. Day 6 does not mean collapse everywhere. It means pressure has reached a level where cracks begin appearing. And those cracks look different depending on location. 7 days without power change expectations. On day 1, most households waited confidently for restoration. By day 7, that confidence fades. Official briefings, if still occurring, grow cautious. Timelines disappear. Restoration becomes regional rather than universal. Some areas may see partial power returns. Others remain dark. Restarting large sections of the grid requires stable generation, intact transmission lines, and synchronized coordination. Damage to substations or control systems can extend outages significantly. Authorities prioritize critical infrastructure first: hospitals, water treatment, emergency services. Residential restoration may lag. People stop asking when the power comes back. They begin asking how long they can function without it. Businesses close indefinitely. Schools suspend operations. Employers tell workers to stay home until further notice. The conversation shifts from inconvenience to sustainability. Behind the scenes, fuel reserves for backup systems grow tight in some regions. Resupply efforts face logistical hurdles. Decision makers weigh rationing options. For the average household, reality settles in. Food supplies look smaller. Water stores feel finite. Battery levels drop. Comfort disappears. Prepared households anticipated this mental shift. They move from emergency mode to sustainability mode. They calculate food burn rates. They ration water carefully. They reduce energy usage to essential tasks only. They maintain routine where possible to preserve morale. They accept that this disruption could last weeks. Day 7 marks the end of the shock phase. The first week exposed vulnerabilities. What happens next depends on preparation, location, and the scale of the damage. The households that maintain discipline through the first 7 days now hold something valuable: stability. And stability buys time. The first 7 days after the grid goes down will not look like a movie. It will look like inconvenience turning into pressure. Modern life depends on electricity at every level. Remove it, and fuel stops moving. Water pressure drops. Communication fragments. Medical systems strain. The first week decides whether you operate from stability or from panic. If your household can handle 7 days of drinking water, at least 1 gallon per person per day, 7 days of food that does not rely on refrigeration, 7 days without gas stations, 7 days without reliable information, 7 days without outside help, you place yourself far ahead of most households. Preparedness is not about dramatic scenarios. It is about giving yourself time. Time to stay home while others rush into crowds. Time to think clearly while others react emotionally. Time to adapt if the outage lasts longer than anyone expects. Ask yourself honestly, if the grid went down tonight, how many days could your household function before you had to leave home for supplies? Drop your answer in the comments. If this breakdown helped you think differently about your own readiness, hit like, subscribe, and visit the website for deeper guides on building that 7-day buffer. The grid supports everything. Without it, normal disappears faster than most people realize. Stay ready.